The next big moment for the labor movement is happening right here. 5,200 Mercedes workers are voting this week on whether or not to join the UAW. If workers win, they'll become the largest new manufacturing union in the country since 1989. It's a pretty big deal. From constant anti-union messages from the company to pressure from politicians, the anti-union attacks are coming at workers from all sides.
This is a pretty big deal, not only because this is a massive effort to unionize workers in Alabama, but because they've also been met with all sorts of tactics meant to union bust. And we're gonna get to those details in a moment. But first, let's talk about the workers themselves. So this is the Mercedes factory in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's become the battleground for the future of American labor. It is a big deal. Now, if workers there vote to join the United Auto Workers, it would be a massive victory in a historically anti-union state in the South, of course. And that's why corrupt Republicans and business interests are waging an outright assault on the Mercedes workers and their right to a free and fair election to unionize. And look, we don't say this lightly. The union busting has been nothing short of extreme. So we'll start off with the Business Council of Alabama, which is a huge force behind trying to defeat this union.
Behind the union busting blitz is one group, the Business Council of Alabama. The BCA claims that its main goal is to, quote, work on behalf of nearly 1 million working Alabamians. But looking at its leaders can tell us a lot about the organization's true mission. Its top brass represents the state's most powerful players, from utilities to banks to the healthcare sector. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey has been BCA's most powerful anti-union partner. She has repeatedly campaigned in strong opposition to auto worker unionization. Follow the money and you'll find that 7 of Ivey's top 12 campaign donors in the 2021-2022 election cycle have connections to the BCA. The BCA, through its Political Action Committee Progress PAC, gave Ivey $380,000 since 2011. Ivey also has a bunch of people working for her who used to work at the BCA in executive positions, including her Director of Legislative Affairs and one of her 2 deputy chiefs of staff.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
Oh, it gets worse. So Governor Kay Ivey last Friday signed a bill that would revoke any economic incentives that the state provides a company if they voluntarily recognize a union or if the union does not hold a secret ballot for their election. The law does not take effect until next year, but clearly she did this as like a form of intimidation, a way of kind of putting her thumb on the scale when it comes to this effort to unionize. And the workers, by the way, will be voting on Friday of this week on whether or not they will join the United Auto Workers. John.
It's exciting to see them doing it, particularly following on from the big victories, specifically in the automotive industry. In unionization over the last year or two, it's been one of the areas where we've seen the most of that. It is depressing in this country to already know how this is gonna play out in terms of the different groups. I don't know if it's gonna succeed or not. I have no idea. We've seen a lot of drives succeed. We've seen others that were very high profile fail. But in this particular case, like it's also clear, she's like, we will take away the business incentives. If you as a corporation make the decision for yourselves that maybe having a union would be good for your company.
Right, exactly.
We don't care, we want your business to fail. Like, it's not about your business thriving and thus helping our state that you're in. It's we want your business if you do not encourage workers to have respect for their own worth, to advocate for their interests.
Yeah.
And we know Fox News, right-wing media are gonna line up with the business lobby. And regular conservatives are gonna be so brainwashed by right-wing media that they will think that all these incredibly wealthy politicians working hand in hand with incredibly wealthy members of the media and the business council, they're the ones that are working on behalf of the workers. It's just so amazing that you like there will always be people like Kay Ivey to take the positions that she's taking, but that she can take that position and still maintain the mantle of being for workers is what feels unacceptable to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, it really depends on what you mean by conservatives will be brainwashed against the unionization effort, because I would venture to say in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the Mercedes I'm sure there's plenty of conservative Mercedes workers who are likely to cast their ballot in favor of unionizing. And we've seen other, like the John Deere strikes that took place, I believe it was last year. Those were not leftist workers, right? A lot of those people were hardcore conservatives. So when it comes to the workers themselves, this country has actually had a long-standing tradition of workers of all political persuasions coming together and demanding a seat at the table at their place of work, demanding better pay, better, benefits and stuff like that, which is why I think it's really, really important to consider the success of building broad coalitions in order to accomplish some of the economic policies that people want in this country. You're gonna have to, work with people that you might disagree with on other political issues if you're gonna wanna build that coalition to garner enough support for the policies that you want, right? And so you see that happening when it comes to workers specifically in workplaces that are trying to unionize or have already unionized. But in terms of conservative lawmakers, they love crushing unions.
Well, look, and I don't think that you're wrong, and certainly this might be an instance where you do see that working together. I'm just saying when you look at polls of what conservatives think about unions and whether they would be interested in their own workplace unionizing, the support is significantly lower than it is amongst Democrats, and significantly lower than it would have been a few decades ago.
Yeah, that is true, especially if you're comparing them to Democrats. But I am seeing. Look, I think that the Republican lawmakers espousing economic populism are full of crap, and they don't actually believe what they're saying and have no interest in pursuing policies that make work better for workers in this country. However, I do think that the economic populism espoused by some of the conservative voters is genuine, but I would say that there's a difference between most Democratic voters versus conservative voters, or Democrats versus Republicans in terms of how they feel about unions. Yes, there's a disparity there, but we'll see how it plays out. I'm hopeful that the workers at this plant in Alabama are going to unionize, but we'll see. So you have Kay Ivey getting involved, trying to discourage that from happening. You also have, the employers at Mercedes also attempting to crush the union. So the UAW has filed 6 charges against the company for disciplining employees for discussing unionization, banning the distribution of union materials, surveilling employees, discharging union supporters, forcing employees to attend captive audience meetings where of course they're given propaganda to avoid joining the union, and making statements suggesting the union activity is futile. The company even replaced its US CEO just a few weeks ago and then had a local Alabama pastor record a message to the workers telling them to give the new CEO a chance instead of unionizing.
Why?
By the way, you could totally love your boss, you could totally love your employers and still want to unionize because you think the workers should have a seat at the table, okay? And then here's some of the message which the factory blasted out in a text message to its workers.
Mercedes-Benz has been an uplift for people like me, for people who look like me. Mercedes has been through some changes, but this one change I would suggest to us to be careful of. I'm grateful and thankful for this major shift that has happened in creating a new leadership opportunity and having a new CEO. I've taken the time to talk to him, to listen to him. He's empathetic. He cares about this company. In fact, he cares about people. Do we want to allow a particular group to determine that they have to go back and forth to negotiate something for us? Or do we want to be able to go directly to the company?
What? So that's the local Alabama pastor who recorded the message on behalf of Mercedes.
Does he work at Mercedes?
He's a local Alabama pastor.
Then why does he keep saying we? You don't work there. What are you talking about? We don't want to go back and forth. We want to go directly to, no, the union talks directly to the company. What's this back and forth that you're talking about? Look, it's so transparent. Like if you're a conservative, I just want you to imagine like that you are the CEO of a company or on the board of a company and you make a whole bunch of money and that theoretically you might make slightly less money if there was a union. What would you do to discourage people from unionizing? And they're just doing all of those things. Like don't be conned by any of this. It's just the tactics of people who really like making as much money as possible and don't give a damn if everybody else, I was gonna swear there, I'm not going to, does not do as well, I will say.
Look, Mercedes wants to use their profits to bolster the value of their stock. In 2023, they authorized $4 billion in stock buybacks.
Which benefits regular workers, obviously.
Obviously not, benefits the shareholders by inflating the value of the shares. And then in 2024, they did the same. They spent $3 billion on stock buybacks. They don't want to pay the workers more when they can inflate the value of their shares on behalf of their shareholders who they have a fiduciary responsibility to.
Can we hear the pastor talking about the $7 billion in stock buybacks over 2 years?
Maybe if he had a little more riz, sure, but that guy looks like he's about to fall asleep, so no.
I mean, I don't think his heart is in it, and that is to his credit. It shouldn't be, but yeah, it's cheap tactics. That's all it is. And I'm not saying that it's good for everyone literally everywhere, but I think that particularly in the automotive industry, especially, there's a very long history of workers' interests being, I think, well represented by unions. I think it's one of the long-standing, strongest unions in the US. You've seen a lot of growth in other auto manufacturers.
Yep.
There's a few that haven't been cracked into, and obviously, as you pointed out, the South is a very difficult area in terms of that. It's good to see some people fighting back. We've had this like decades-long downslide in sentiment for unions, and obviously something needs to change.
I agree. Luckily, one of the best things to happen to the United Auto Workers in recent years is that they have wonderful leadership with Sean Fain. So crossing my fingers for the workers in Alabama. We'll see how this plays out. As I said, they're gonna vote on Friday, and we'll be sure to update you on this story when we learn more.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a young Turk.